Dear friends, preparing research proposals is quite a task. Many researchers would like to prepare a research project which is acceptable to the funding agencies. Now I am going to talk on the subject preparing project proposals and inventory approach. Project execution is part and parcel of modern day human life. Whether it is government agencies or private companies or civil society organizations, project proposals are to be submitted for financial support. A good project proposal has a higher rate of chance of being accepted for funding. Project proposal is especially a critical task for academicians since it is crucial for their upward professional movement and reputation. It is not that easy to get the financial support from the funding agencies as every rupee of taxpayers' money is involved. The project evaluators weigh the pros and cons of the proposal to be funded in terms of the social benefits that accrue to the society in terms of knowledge production and diffusion. The knowledge produced by a project should be contemporary and it should be relevant to the society at large. Large funding organizations have their own templates for project proposals. These provide guidelines for the preparation of project proposals. The application form can be downloaded from their websites and filled for submission. Some of the organizations prefer online submission. The funding agencies normally invite applications for support during a particular period of time every year. The announcement notification should be diligently watched not to miss the deadline. Most funding agencies do not normally accept late submission of applications. In very few cases, the applications are accepted all through the year. Then it is always better to stick to the timeline provided by the funding agencies. Occasionally, a sponsoring agency may approach an organization or individual to prepare a project proposal and execute it. Every project proposal begins with the selection of a topic or a subject in an identified area. There are certain useful guidelines to follow. Number one, research is not merely for helping in decision-making process. It goes beyond. Number two, research is either qualitative or quantitative or both. Number three, research can be either academic or private. They are also called as basic and applied. While academic research is mostly basic, private research is mostly applied. The next one is academic research is public and private research is proprietary in character. The selection of topic for research depends basically upon the researcher's interest. Some researchers may opt for specific approach to research. A good number of sources would be available for the selection of topic. These range from research journals to professional journals to internet sources. Research abstracts will also provide ideas to the selection of topics. Normally, there are 8 steps in the development of a research project. The selection of a research problem is the first step. The 8 steps according to Wimmer and Dominic are: number 1, selection of problem; number 2, review of existing research and theory; number 3, statement of hypothesis or research questions; number 4, determination of appropriate methodology and research design; number 5, data collection; number 6, analysis and interpretation of data; number 7, presentation of results; and finally number 8, replication. Mass media are also a useful source for research topics. People read newspapers, listen to radio, watch television, and browse the internet. In addition, they see movies and involve themselves in personal discussions with others. Such daily routines and everyday situations are a veritable source of topics. Researchers, after exposure to information, can think of interesting topics for their investigation. Archival data provide enormous amount of information to think and finalize the problems. Evaluating the research work already done by agencies like Gallup, Nielsen, Harris, and others offers a huge opportunity to opt for fascinating research topics. This process is known in research parlance as secondary analysis. Since research these days is too expensive, secondary analysis is an alternative way of doing projects. Here, the data are readily available, but the evaluation can be done from different perspectives. However, there is no guarantee that the available data are always of acceptable level. Once the topic is selected, there are other questions to be answered. One of them is the researchability of the topic. Novice researchers opt for high-sounding topics, but at the ground zero level, there may be too many issues. The merit of the topic is directly related to the relevance of the topic. Here, the researcher should know whether the topic is macro or micro in character. The modern trend is to prefer micro topics instead of macro topics, except in historical research projects. If you say a study of impact of social media on Indians, it is too broad a topic. Compared to this, effects of social media use on the students of Tejpur University is a micro topic. It can even be narrowed down to science or social science or management students. The investigator should also be sure that the terms used in the project are definable. It means the operational definitions are available for the variables selected. Then, the data collected must be amenable to measuring. In other words, the data must be valid and measurable. Some researchers opt for a pilot study and others can test the research procedures. Any application of a statistical method without knowing the output is going to generate problems. It is called the law of instrument. Experts always suggest the use of simple frequencies and percentages instead of confused application of high-level statistical tests. A researcher should be sure whether the study being undertaken is significant. A study should have either practical or theoretical value. The main purpose behind every research is to contribute to the existing mass of knowledge. Any research project undertaken must contribute to the field in answering certain questions. It can be helpful in policy formulation or decision making. The significance or the feasibility of the project is an important element before undertaking any research project. The project investigator should find out whether the data collected is going to prompt any plausible action, because no one wants to waste money just for the heck of it. In research, the obvious option is to know whether the findings can be generalized. It means if the project has any practical use, it must contain external validity. This is nothing but generalization of results to other circumstances. The most important aspect of any project is the cost involved. Even a good project, if it is expensive, may not be considered for funding. A cost benefit analysis must be done beforehand. Certain high level projects are quite expensive and may not easily receive sponsorship. All the materials and equipment needed for the project should be listed. Only the essentials must be identified. The choice can be between a car and a computer. Perhaps the latter should get the preference unless the project entails heavy traveling. In other words, a workable budget is a must. The recurring and non-recurring expenditure should be clearly demarcated. Non-recurring expenses are one-time expenditure like equipment and others. Recurring expenditure includes salaries, field work, and other related expenses to be paid at regular intervals. The duration of the project is yet another important factor. The project planners must design their project in such a way that it is completed before the deadline expires. Many researchers do not understand the significance of timeline. Private sector sponsors are particular about meeting the deadline. Each step of research should be assigned a timeline and must be adhered to. As the deadline approaches, most researchers panic and try to finish it off somehow. This will lead to a chaotic situation and the finished product will have many distortions. Poor planning is always an obstacle even if the research topic is superb. A well-planned research project saves both time and money. It is said that, inverted commas, the simplest research approach is always the best, close the inverted comma. Then we have ethical issues to consider. The project should not affect anyone involved in the project either physically or psychologically. It can be respondents or sponsors or fellow researchers. Unsuspecting respondents should not be subjected to embarrassment or harassment. The 8 steps mentioned must be analyzed as to their utility for the project. That is, we must be convinced of the fact that these steps will answer all our research questions. A project director can be innovative enough to make changes in the procedure to procure the much needed results. A general format of a project proposal will, as already stated, have an introduction. The introduction may contain the statement of the problem or it may offer some background information of the topic selected for investigation. The presentation should be crisp and moving. Some researchers have the habit of dumping extraneous material to make the preliminary presentation voluminous. Suppose we are doing a project on the impact of television violence on children in a defined geographical area in Assam. What is the relevance of discussing the history of print media in India? Perhaps James Augustus Hickey has nothing to do with TV violence and children in Assam. A research project is not merely piecing information together, relevant or irrelevant. It has to be meaningful. Particularly, the young researchers will get carried away by the notion of volume. The quality of work is more important than the quantity of it. Consulting available literature on the topic of research is a scientific approach. This is to know what has already been done so that one can save time and money. A review of literature will enable a researcher to find out, number one, what type of research has been carried out in the identified area of investigation. Number 2, what are the findings of the studies already conducted? Number 3, the suggestions or recommendations of previous researchers. Number 4, the research methods used by others. And lastly, number 5, the contribution of the present project to the existing mass of knowledge, as already stated. Next is the enunciation of objectives. In media research, two types of objectives are framed. The first type contains general objectives. The general objectives can be a broader one. Some researchers prefer two general objectives depending upon the broadness of the topic. The second category is of specific objectives. There are specific objectives to be used in the sense that these objectives help generate either research questions or hypotheses for testing. In a way, specific objectives are converted into either research questions or hypotheses later. The review of literature provides enough ideas for a project director or researcher to construct hypotheses or research questions to be tested or answered. The statements of research questions or hypotheses will follow next. A hypothesis is a statement of predicted relationship between two or more variables. The relationship may be either true or false. A research question provides indications about the research phenomena. Research questions are used when a researcher is not sure about the phenomena or research problem being investigated. It is possible that research questions can help generate testable hypotheses. The preliminary studies are helpful in providing enough material for the purpose of developing hypotheses. Research questions are mostly related to general areas of the research project, whereas the hypotheses are statements of relationship between variables that can be tested to prove as true or false. After this phase, the project should proceed to the methodology part. The type of appropriate methodology selected for the project is equally important. In fact, data interpretation and analysis depend upon the appropriateness of the methodology selected. Interpretation and analysis may be time consuming, as each project must be carefully planned in tune with the instructions given by the sponsoring agency. There should be enough care to be taken. In India, most researchers in mass communication do not consider the factors of internal and external validity seriously. If the researcher can generalize his findings to the population, then he has achieved external validity, as already stated. If he has control over research condition, then he will be able to achieve internal validity. Then the chances of getting incorrect explanations will be remote. I have already spoken of the appropriateness of the methodology. Here, we have to remember that while preparing a project proposal, the researcher should be sure of what he wants to get from his project. The type of result he or she wants to authentically get from research is directly related to the method selected. A survey research is different from content analysis. Similarly, historical research project is different from others in the sense that it attempts to reconstruct the past events. Every method has its own advantages and disadvantages. At the same time, the project director should decide whether he would follow the current methods that are popular or a method that integrates two or more methods. Some researchers have a fascination for the adoption of multiple methods. it is not that much important. We have to exercise caution as to the relevance of such options. Not only verbal communication, even non-verbal communication can be researched upon. Semiotic research is also an area of fascinating research, especially in the field of advertising and visual communication. The appropriateness of research method implies that the researcher should link his or her research objectives to the research method for appropriate results. This again calls for consistency in research all through. The other one is the level of measurement. This is related to the type of data the researcher intends to generate. The 4 levels of measurement are nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Such a classification indicates the quality of data. For example, nominal data are the weakest while ratio level data are strong. The application of relevant statistical test depends upon the level of data. You should not apply a higher level statistical test to the weakest category of nominal data. The indiscriminate use of statistical tests will produce wrong results. Ultimately, it defeats the very purpose of the project. There are research suppliers and field service providers to help in project preparation and execution for a fee. Their enlistment depends upon the project budget and allocation of funds for such services. In Western countries, it is a big business. We must also note that each service provider organization has its own professional standing. Then the project director must conduct a scrutiny of what is being offered by the service provider. The purpose of the study determines the format of the presentation of findings. In public sector or academic research, the style of presentation or the format of presentation is clearly prescribed. Private sector sponsored projects want the reports in a simple format. Yet, in both cases, the results must be presented in a clear and brief manner. Replication of the study means that a research question is studied from different angles. In fine, a project proposal should include the sections of introduction, statement of problem, objectives, both general and specific, plan of action. This includes explanation of the criteria of determining the suitability of the topic and review of literature. Then it is plan of management. Plan of management includes schedule, costs, and other deliverables in addition to project benefits. Number 6, justification and social significance of the study are equally important. The next one is how the present project is different from other projects already done should be explained in detail. Lastly, conclusion references are the terminal sections of the project report. Limitations of the study is nowadays included in the concluding chapter, unlike previously which was to be included in the second chapter or in the first chapter itself. In some cases, project risks are also listed. The project director, he is also referred to as project champion in some cases, must see that the project proposal is properly sectionalized and lucidly presented. An innovative project proposal always has a chance of getting the approval of funding. Every project should, in fine, amplify its social significance and contribution to the societal welfare. Do not forget, there is also an element of luck in getting a project funded. Thank you.